Okay, so this week I'm going to be recording with what is basically, I mean, I guess after Madrid, this has to be one of the decks to beat because it just put three copies in the top eight, right? This is Melirapod or Melirapod. In a world with a bunch of young pyromancers and lightning bolts and that kind of nonsense, the Melira combo is very fragile and very awkward. Whereas the more expensive combo, the Archangel combo, is better because the card Archangel is basically unbeatable for the Delver decks. So, this is Pachyderm Pod because of these two Siege Rhinos that he opted to play, as opposed to the other list single copies. Um, and I just kind of like the idea of being this deck that has an actually good creature to fall back on to just kill your opponent with, and also incentivizes playing Resto Angel, so you can Resto Siege Rhino. Nice combo. Um, I'm not going to speak too much on the tutor targets. Like, you don't have Ranger of Eos because you don't have any one drops to get that you want. You don't have Viscera Seers or whatever. Um, just looking at it, it feels like something's missing, and I don't know what it is. It, I really like some kind of weird mid-range, mid-cost trump. But it might just be Siege Rhino, but overall, it's like a lot of the stock things. Like Reclamation Sage is a card I actually haven't played with in Pod because I just haven't played Modern since it came out. But like, it's pretty clear that that card should be in the deck. It's definitely better than Pride Mage because it just comes into play and kills something. And Pride Mage you have to sacrifice, and both of them are pretty much equally fragile, as they both die like bolts, burst lightnings. Um, I like the main deck Sin Collector a lot. Gives you more range to interact with decks like Scapeshift, especially like in combination like here. It might be the card that I'm missing is a Revelark over this Angel, but I'm not going to get too worried about editing a deck that I think is pretty reasonable. Um, the Wall of Roots over one drops choice has to do a lot with the Delver decks. I'm just needing more solid mana sources that can actually block, especially like block a Swiss Sphere is pretty huge. Uh, and it's also a reason to play a ton of Voice of Resurgence in the format. It's also because like a lot of the combo decks are moving towards dig decks, and they are like Voice isn't the best there, but like if they're trying to be slow and somewhat interactive, at least it does like quite a bit more than it used to when the twin decks were like a bit more aggressive, and the combo decks you could expect were like Storm or whatever, where it just did absolutely nothing. Let's see, main deck Linvala, to KO Twin in the mirror, pretty solid, and not something that like a lot of the old lists of this deck had like the second red cap or whatever, but without the Malira combo, you can get away with that. So I like being able to fit this card quite a bit. And again, like I think that the 3/4 flyer plan was always one of the strong points of Kiki Pod, which is just like no one can kill a 3/4 flyer and they just die to it. And this deck has a lot of 3/4 flyers to go with its Siege Rhino beatdown plan. Three Township might be one too many, but I can't comment at this point. I guess I'm used to the Kiki list where the mana is a little more stretched and you can't really afford to play more than, well, two is like this nice sweet spot where it doesn't really KO your mana too hard to play. Um, I'm not really sure how much the Windswept Teeth, like they're probably very good in the deck. I'm just like saying like I'm kind of interested to see how much they actually help the mana compared to the old Marsh Flats, Misty Rainforest kind of stuff. As for the sideboard, we have some more tutor targets, more ways to kill Scape Shift players. This card that kills people who deserve to lose to it. Second Pontiff, you really need that against Delver. Just a way to mop up Pyromancer tokens, kill Delvers that they land, things like that. And Thrawn is just kind of a big threat that is different than the ones you have here, and significantly harder for certain decks to deal with. Choke is a pretty powerful hate card. We watched me play with Boyle last week, and Choke is not quite as good, but is similar in terms of like how backbreaking it is. Fracturing Gust hates on multiple decks compared to the other artifact kill spells, and with all of this mana, you can reasonably cast it against Affinity in time, so it's not too worrisome that it's Gust instead of Kataki or Harmonic Sliver. Though I guess I'm not really, I'm not really sold on two of those over Kataki. 4 Thoughtseize is pretty stock. 2 Path is pretty stock around with the removal, though I'm not sure I want a Path over a Decay. Though, I don't know. The 4th Decay is something that I kind of would like access to instead of a Path. I'm not super happy about Path. I'm not super convinced that there's a ton of really, like, 4-drop creatures I need to kill. I guess Linvala in the mirror, but um, yeah, but besides that, not really sure what else I'd be looking for in this deck. Ooh. Um, I guess that's not doesn't matter really anymore. I was thinking that it's kind of cool that you get to without having to rely on the persist creatures enter the battlefield triggers for the Malaria combo. You can actually get away with playing Hushwing Griff in your deck, and it like turns off like your Finks, your Siege Rhinos, and your Resto Angels. But like it's just like a little too much, and it might just be like a sideboard card if you actually care about that out of another deck. I think there's just like a lot of room to develop with this deck, and I just want to like kind of start with it here and see where it goes.